Thank you for joining us here at the First Alert Desk on your Friday morning. It is 11 a.m., which means it's another installment of In Case You Missed It. I'm Maria Moreau, joined by our morning anchor, the lovely Brooks Baptiste. Brooks, how you doing?
Good morning. Happy Friday. We made it to the end of another week, and we love to say that.
Yes.
But, Maria, we're watching a couple of stories right now, and one being something that involves Atlanta-based Delta Airlines. You know, for the past couple of months or so, it seems like they've had an incident, whether it's been on board or it's just been a mess. Well, new this morning, there is a woman who is suing after claims that boiling hot coffee burned her during an international Delta flight. So she's seeking damages now. Her name is Cheryl Chalias, and she says that she was on a Delta flight last December when boiling hot coffee was spilled on her lap. Well, she says she told the flight attendants that she was burned, but she doesn't think that she was taken seriously. So pictures that we showed you towards the front of that video, and I'm glad we just got it off the screen. It's tough to see.
Yeah. Surprised me, too.
Yeah, and it's tough to see. So if you missed it, it may be okay. Oh, there it is. It came back. But she was saying that those are the burns there on the woman's upper legs and her torso. And according to our CBS affiliate in Seattle, Delta Airlines say they're not going to comment on pending litigation. But Maria, I don't know if you've ever been on a flight, you understand that these flight attendants, 9 times out of 10, are working diligently to try and serve all of the customers and whatnot. And I've always wondered what happens when something is spilled accidentally. Coffee can be hot, so that could be the case.
This story reminded me of the McDonald's lawsuit.
Oh, yeah.
With the woman, the elderly woman who had coffee spilled on her, and she had also burns that had to, she was hospitalized for it. So it's very serious stuff.
And if I remember correctly, I believe she won that lawsuit because there was a lack of writing on the cup that said hot or caution hot, whatever it might have been. So there was enough evidence for, the judge to determine that the company was at fault. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with Delta Airlines, and hopefully they'll be able to get that resolved. Also, something that may not even shock you this morning, but we have a report to support a claim that I think a lot of people can say, I knew it already, right? So we're talking about the new Federal Trade Commission report that says major social media and video streaming services conducted vast surveillance of users to monetize their personal information. So this report analyzed how 9 companies, including Meta, YouTube, TikTok, and so many others, collect and use data. The FTC says that while the companies make a lot of money by harvesting personal data, it can put people's privacy in danger and expose them to things like identity theft and even stalking. Think about that. Well, they report that several of the firms failed to adequately protect children and teens. The FTC is recommending that companies limit data collection and sharing and restrict targeted advertising and improve protections for teens. And Maria, there's obviously been a lot going on, not just with all companies, but with TikTok especially, of just making sure the users are safe when they used it, obviously being owned by a Chinese company, ByteDance, and people just wondering, okay, so what access are we giving these companies? What kind of access are we giving these companies into our lives? Because we do put so much on social media, and then they're making money off of that.
Yeah, and, these companies putting out those long letters and lists of their privacy rights and your privacy rights and whatnot. And most people, realistically, they're just not going to read through that, and that leaves a lot of wiggle room to hide something in between. So.
I would love to talk to one person. Seriously, just one person that is not a lawyer or a judge.
I was going to say, you're going to find some lawyers
that
out there
has been able to sign the terms of use and the agreement, and they can tell me that they've read everything. I just don't think you're going to find it. But also, like you said, that's why we take this kind of risk. We may be signing it over saying, I do agree, when in reality, you're not okay with what these companies are doing.
So Brooks Baptiste giving you a lesson to you,
Trying.
Your kids, your grandma. Be careful on social media. Make sure you're protecting yourself and your personal information.
And yes, I'll practice what I preach as well, because I don't read the terms as well, Maria.
All right, I want to take a look at what's ahead for today. I know this is in case you missed it, but a lot of you have been looking for what is going to be Vice President Kamala Harris in Atlanta today, the routes, the traffic impacts, everything that goes in when you have a dignitary, a vice president, a president coming to a state like Georgia. So Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to be in Georgia today. She's talking about reproductive rights. She's expected to land in Atlanta just after the noon hour, and her remarks are scheduled for 3:30. You know, here on Atlanta News First Plus, we make sure we get you live and in the moment with all of the news that's happening, and we will be covering both her landing and remarks. Georgia law forbids an abortion once fetal cardiac activity is detected in the womb, otherwise known as a heartbeat. In most cases, that happens around the 6-week mark. Now, doctors in Georgia could face felony charges and a decade in prison if they perform a procedure after that heartbeat is detected. Now, meanwhile, Governor Brian Kemp defends our state's abortion law, saying that though it is one of the most restrictive in the country, it has established clear expectations for medical emergencies, like when a mother's life is at risk. Abortion rights advocates worry that by the time it's a medical emergency, it may be too late. So that is the focus for Vice President Kamala Harris. She says she plans on calling out former President Donald Trump for saying he will personally cast his vote in Florida for an abortion ban just like the one in Georgia. Now, Harris's visit comes after a stop in Michigan just yesterday. She was at a town hall style campaign event where she was joined by several celebrities, including Oprah Winfrey. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump spent the day in Washington, D.C. He's focusing his voice on support for Israel. CBS News' Jared Hill has more on the campaign trail.
Vice President Kamala Harris returned to Battleground, Michigan last night for a rally that resembled Oprah Winfrey's old talk show.
Time to step up.
In front of a live audience and streamed on social media, Harris talked to swing state voters about topics like gun control.
I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and I'm in favor of assault weapons bans, universal background checks, red flag laws,
and abortion rights.
Certain people who are in these state houses, and then starting with the former President of the United States, think they're in a better position than a doctor or a nurse to determine when their patient needs medical care.
We're going to defeat Kamala Harris. We're going to take back our country.
In Washington, D.C., former President Donald Trump promised to be Israel's protector as he courted Jewish American voters.
If I do win, Israel will be safe and secure, and we will stop the toxic poison of anti-Semitism from spreading all over America and all over the world.
Trump also threatened to yank federal support from colleges that support pro-Palestinian protests. Jared Hill, CBS News.
And talking a little more locally, you're taking a look right now at Underground Atlanta, a familiar spot for many downtown here. Well, some new news for families, students, and shoppers that frequent this area. Underground Atlanta could be coming together again, but this time above ground. The iconic entertainment district that opened 55 years ago is now planning to add a huge 30-story apartment. It's part of a push to build new housing downtown, and there's going to be a lot of it. Atlanta News First Patrick Quinn reports on this investment.
A fresh coat of paint, a new mural, and a new look underway at Underground Atlanta. But a far bigger facelift could be on the horizon. Underground could soon develop a major complex above ground.
We could leverage going above ground and still have that underground experience.
Owner of Underground Atlanta, Shanil Lalani, told me they're planning this, a 30-story mixed-use complex with shops, retail, and 400 units of housing. Because what's here now?
This is just a vacant building.
163 units of housing will be affordable, with studio apartments averaging $970 a month. A one-bedroom unit, $1,052 per month.
Today was a major milestone.
This complex could be made possible thanks to a private-public partnership with Invest Atlanta, the economic development arm for the city. Today, the board gave initial unanimous approval for a $40 million tax-exempt bond allocation to help get this project off the ground.
It could not happen without Invest Atlanta and the mayor's leadership.
Lalani said now with the city's initial commitment, they can leverage private donors to make this development dream a reality. It's just the latest effort to revive downtown with high-density housing.
We're here on the 29th floor now.
Lalani is working to redevelop 34 Peachtree. We got a tour last year, a high-rise former bank repurposed for housing. And the city will also rehabilitate 2 Peachtree, a 44-story office tower, into more than 200 units of housing. For Chenille, he said while they have many hurdles to overcome for this complex and underground Atlanta, the sky is the limit.
There is not an option to not do this. I believe, we'll get there.
Patrick Quinn, Atlanta News First.
Speaking of the sky is the limit, in case you missed this, an incredible accomplishment for the one and only Atlanta Dream. For the second year in a row, the Dream is headed to the playoffs. Atlanta was on the road last night for its final game of the regular season in New York. Now, during that game, Tina Charles became the WNBA's all-time landing rebounder, and she also became the league's career leader in a total double-doubles with 193. 2 records in one night. Charles had 10 points and 10 rebounds. The Dream beat the Liberties 78-67. Now Atlanta will stay in New York to play the top-seeded Liberty in a best-of-3 series to tip off the first round. That first game is happening this Sunday. Tip-off is at 1 p.m. So for all you WNBA fans, basketball fans, do take this weekend, maybe spend some time cheering on our Atlanta Dream. Speaking of this weekend, it is gorgeous weather outside, and that is expected to continue. Atlanta News First has weather where you are with meteorologist Ella Dorsey up next.